Welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Dan and this is my guitar. We are in the middle of a series looking at Kenny Burrell's Midnight Blue. If you are just joining us, then you might want to go back to the previous 4 lessons and take a look at the head and also the beginning of the solo. We're now over halfway through, and this week we're going to be taking a look at a slightly strange point in the solo where Kenny deviates from the structure and actually has 2 A sections in a row before going back to the normal structure of an A section to a B section. And we'll be taking a look at the very last chorus of the solo next week. So we'll be moving on to something new after that. In this video, we'll also be taking a look at some more blues vocabulary. We'll be taking a look at using double stops and dyads in your solos, especially in a blues format. And we'll also be taking a look at the ridiculously fast passage that he plays. We're going to unpack what he's actually playing in that passage, and then we're also going to take a look at some tips for speeding up your right hand and improving the coordination between your left and right hand. If you like this video, then please do give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more, then hit the subscribe button. If you really like it and you'd like to support me in making some more, then Patreon's the place to go to do that, but don't feel obliged. Thanks to Boris and Mark who have joined the Patreon this week. Really, really appreciate your support. So let's take a look at the first A section. So this is the first A section, and he starts off with a slide into the 13th fret using dyads in fourths. So a dyad is essentially using 2 notes at once, sometimes referred to as a double stop, although I think that's more of a classical term. But what he's doing is he's using 2 notes, so the notes that he's using here are C and F on the top 2 strings, and he's sliding into it from somewhere behind. Now, it's difficult to hear exactly where he's sliding in from, but I think it's somewhere close by, probably the 10th or 11th fret. Now, I'm using my 4th finger to do that. I'm not sure which finger he was using, but I chose to use my 4th finger purely because then I've got my first 3 fingers free to be able to do the next lick, which is that little section there. So if you're feeling particularly brave and you're experienced, then try going from further back, like that. But if you're slightly newer to this technique, then probably go from somewhere nearer, like the 11th or maybe even the 12th fret, like that. It will still sound just as authentic. You might notice this sound is quite like George Benson, specifically Give Me the Night. And I think George Benson probably took a lot of inspiration from Kenny Burrell. He certainly did from people like Wes Montgomery, who also used this particular technique. So the vocabulary that he's using for this, again, is the minor pentatonic scale that we've looked at before. The minor pentatonic scale is easy to play in fourths just because of how it's set up. So here's an exercise using the minor pentatonic scale with a lateral approach, and this will enable you to be able to play more stuff like this. So as you can see, you can try that particular approach on other sets of strings as well, not just the top 2 strings. So try and putting that in your solo as well once you've learnt Kenny's approach. The next thing to take a look at in this is this little blues lick that he plays, and he's using double stops to play this blues lick. So what we've got here is we've got the note of F on the top, and then the note of B flat underneath, and this is where he starts out, and he's actually picking quite a lot of this. to get the real clarity in his line, he's actually picking quite a lot of it rather than using legato. Rather than going like that, he's actually picking it from what I can hear when I was transcribing it. Now, with a lick like this, you're going to want to use it in other places, not just at the top here. If you want to have more creative freedom in your soloing, then what I would suggest you do is learn it in different places on the guitar, as many different places as possible. The cage system may well help you with this, to be able to find those places, but don't just purely rely on that. You know, think a little bit more outside the box as well. Here's a little exercise using this lick and moving it into different places on the guitar. So one way that you can digest this lick and move it into different places on the guitar is with a slightly systematic approach. If you're very organized, then you could do what I do, which is to sit down on a Sunday evening and plan out what you can practice. Make sure that you're being realistic with your approach. Life does get in the way and you need to allow for that. So be realistic rather than being massively disappointed and disillusioned by the end of the week. But what you might want to do is, let's say on a Monday, you could take the lick itself. So this particular blues lick that we just looked at, you could play it in a few different positions on the guitar on a Monday and get that underneath your fingers. And then on a Tuesday, you could move it into a different key and in different positions again. And you might find it useful to follow a blues progression. So in this case, we could learn it in F on the Monday and in the different positions. And then on Tuesday, we could learn it in B flat. And then on Wednesday, you could learn it in C. And then on the Thursday, you could try playing it to a backing track. Make sure that you've got like a drone in F going whilst you're learning it on that Monday, and a drone in B flat on the Tuesday, a drone in C on the Wednesday. And then try using it on that Thursday and Friday with a backing track so you can get creative with it. As I said, be realistic. If you are a beginner or an intermediate player, then you might want to extend that time out accordingly and spend 3 days on one key in the various different positions before moving on to the next one. So get your pens and paper out, or your iPhones and iPads, and get planning for your practice if a systematic approach works for you. So the next little section to look at is this really fast line. So he goes up to the dusty end of the guitar. Now this is very reminiscent of what he did further down back at the beginning of the solo, I think in the first and second choruses. Up the dusty end, it's slightly more harder, and you have to have really good coordination in order to get those lines as clean as possible without any mutes or wrong notes. What might be a really good thing to do is to get your metronome out and practice those two positions. Then, you know, as well as doing that, like I've said before with the lateral approach, try mixing the two, so going between the two positions like Kenny does, and then try doing it ascending as well. You can see I move across with my second finger there. There's probably a couple of different combinations that you could use. You might be able to use 1, 2, 3 and then go, but that's just, it kind of creates a bit of a crunch point between your first and third fingers there. So I think probably going across with your second finger is the best one there. So you might want to also try ascending, going backwards up the neck like this. Slightly more awkward, but it could create something which is a little bit more different sounding in your solos. So what you want to do is get your metronomes out, slow it down, and really make sure that you have those lines clean and clear. Do film yourself, record yourself so you can hear it back and you can hear which fingers might be causing a problem so that you can focus in on that the next time around that you play. So the second part of this first A section uses a repeat of all of the techniques and the approach that he's used in the first half. But there is one little bit that he does do, which is quite interesting, and I heard it kind of stuck out to me when I was listening to it and transcribing it, so I'm just going to share it with you here. And it sounds like he's doing what I just did there, which is using more legato. So a hammer on and then a slide back like that. But what he's actually doing is he's picking twice before he does any legato. So, and what you get there is a slightly more clear sound. So you might want to try that all over the guitar as well in your other different positions. So let's take a look at the second A section now. So moving on into the second A section, as I said earlier in this video, Kenny chooses to move away from the structure that he's used up to now, which is using an A section and then a B section, which has got slightly more harmonic movement. So in the B section up to now, he's been using a minor 2-5-1, and then going to B flat 7, and then B flat minor 9 down to A flat minor 9, and then a C altered chord at the end. Here he chooses just to use a repeat of the A section. Now, I couldn't find online any information about why he chose to do this or how he might have directed this in the studio. It sounds particularly smooth to me, so I think it's probably something that was planned. But if it wasn't, one thing that he might have done as the band leader is to have given the sections signals, so hand signals possibly, or body signals. If it was me, I would have probably had a hand signal as a 1 for the A section and a 2 for the B section. And if you're doing this and you're trying to signal to the band last minute that you want to either repeat a section or move on to the next section, then I would probably do it with your right hand if you're right-handed on the guitar, just so that your left hand can stay holding a note so that it sounds smooth. Otherwise you might come off and ping a note on with your left hand. So A section could be that, B section could be that, or it could be something like one of my friends uses for a bridge section this, symbol for a bridge, or this for the chorus. You can come up with your own different hand signals for the sections, but I think probably using your right hand is better if you're a guitarist. So let's get into what he does over the top of this ridiculously fast passage that he plays right at the top of the second A section. So what he's using here is a combination of speed picking and also legato. On the actual record, it's really difficult to hear what he's using. He's playing so fast that you can't really exactly hear what he's doing. And there's quite a lot of muted notes in there as well. I mean, I'm not 100% sure that Kenny's technique was up to this kind of speed playing, but to me that doesn't really matter. I think it's more of a sound thing. I think what he was trying to do there was he was trying to create a burst of energy or a burst of emotion in his playing, just to create a real intensity. And this is something that you can do as well. And I think actually the mistakes and the mutes and things like that in there actually add to the sound. But we can look at ways of improving our picking in the right hand and improving our technique and improving our coordination between our left and right hands, because those are all the things that will really help to create clean and clear lines. So here are 5 things that you can do to improve your picking. So the first one is alternate picking. So you're probably all aware of alternate picking. That's just basically down up in your left hand relentlessly, no matter what note you're moving to. If your first pick was a down, then your next one's going to be an up. So one way of doing that, as we might all know, is using that spider exercise. Fretboard. It's always really good to go all the way to the top and then back down again. If you want to make this a bit more of a real world exercise, because it's not very often that you play something like that in a piece of music. You know, you could try string skipping. So you could try creating little geometric shapes. I do that quite often on the guitar, so it might be a bit lopsided, but you know, kind of diamond-ish shape. So with the top of the diamond, the apex here. So something like that, you know, might help you as well. And then also, you know, you can get a piece of paper and a pen out or pencil, and you could write down a different combination of the finger numbers, so 1 to 4. So you could write down something like 1, 3, 2, 4. Or 1, 2, 4, 3. Yeah, that might work as well. Anything that kind of breaks up that basic spider exercise and makes it a bit more real world, something that, you know, might come up in a piece. The other thing is to, you know, try and synchronize your left and right hand. That's coordination. That can be quite tricky to do that. So what you might want to do is, if you've got space in your practice room or you're practicing in your bedroom, it might be easier, have a mirror next to you so that you can take a sideways glance, probably have it on your right hand side. And you can take a sideways glance and you can take a look at to see whether your left and right hand, if you're playing slowly, are in sync with each other. Because when they're not in sync with each other, that's when you get those muted notes or mistakes onto wrong notes and stuff. So slow it right down and try and synchronize the left and right hands, and a mirror will help with that. If you don't have a mirror, then you could always just stick your iPhone or camera, iPad in front of you, film yourself and watch it back afterwards. It's just that slightly more awkward because you've got to press buttons and things and press rewind. So a mirror might help with that in real time. The third thing is a metronome. So a metronome will help you. There's actually a really cool thing called a Humanome if you're slightly more advanced. That is an app that's made by Wayne Krantz, and it actually speeds up and slows down as you go through, and there's varying degrees of intensity as to which you can do that, and that will actually help, you know, again with that real world situation. If you're playing with a drummer, they don't always play to a strict tempo. They will, you know, they'll waver by a couple of BPM each time, sometimes even, you know, as drastic as 5 BPM if they want to speed up or slow down as they get more excited. And you know, this Humanome app actually helps you with that, because, you know, if you've practiced to a strict tempo and then you go and play with a drummer that's kind of wavering around a little bit, which is perfectly natural, then you might struggle a little bit. So you could try that app, or there's plenty of free apps on the iPhone and on the Android as well. Just type in metronome, or tempo is the one that I use. Don't always start slow and speed up. What you might want to do is start at the speed of, you know, this track, which is around kind of 150 BPM, and then slow down gradually to somewhere where you actually feel comfortable playing, and where you're kind of just at the edge of your ability, and then speed up from there, because that's just going to save you time. The fourth thing is actually kind of going back to the picking, which is economy picking. So economy picking is slightly different from alternate picking. It's not strict down up. It does use a lot of down ups in there, but if you're changing string, so let's say we're taking a major scale like the D flat major scale here. Now, if I was going to play this with economy picking, I would go down, up, up, down, up, down, up, up, down, up, up, down, up, up, down. So your picking reflects the direction that you're actually moving in. So that actually saves you time because you're not moving up and around the string. If you've just done an up and you're heading for a down, you're going to have to go up and around to get the down pick on the next string. So it creates a slightly more smooth sound. I do use a little bit of economy picking in this, but it's a combination of alternate economy picking and also legato in there as well, which is those pull-offs and slides and things, just to create more of a smooth sound. So the final thing is more of a physiological thing, and that's loosening up. So you've got to think of yourself a little bit like an athlete. If you were going to go for a run in the morning or afternoon or evening, then you probably wouldn't go straight into it. You'd do some form of warm-up, because otherwise, you know, it's going to really suck for the first 10-15 minutes. It's going to really hurt, and your performance probably isn't going to be that great. So it's the same with guitar. If you're going to go straight in to playing guitar after just waking up, then your fingers are going to feel like they're wading through porridge. They're going to feel really stiff. It's going to feel, you know, really slow and laborious as you go through. So it's a really good idea to try and loosen up, and you can do that with a few different things. Back when I was on tour, when we actually did gigs, I did a gig in a casino venue, and there was a card dealer that was doing, you know, card tricks and sleight of hand and that kind of thing. I didn't ask him the secrets to his tricks, but I did ask him how he moved so fast with his fingers, and he gave me a few exercises. So one of them was actually putting your hands together in like a praying position, and it's probably better if I point towards the camera like this, and you'll see that I'm moving my fingers side to side like that, and then moving on to the next finger as well, and this creates, and this helps with your coordination. And it's really difficult to talk and do it at the same time. And you can see as I get to like my third and fourth fingers, the interdependence is not quite as good as with the first and second fingers, and that's because they share a, you know, one single tendon. And so to improve that, you know, exercises like this, to improve your coordination and your accuracy, something like this, you know, really works. You can also do this as well, and this isn't necessarily for coordination, although I reckon it probably does help, but it's more for kind of stretching out your fingers. And as you see, again, getting to that third and fourth fingers, it's really difficult to actually do that because they share the same tendon, but it does help. And then things like this again help with coordination, doing that so that you're trying to avoid hitting your fingers in the middle. So that will help with coordination. And then stuff like this will really help with just, you know, stretching out and warming up. So putting your hands again in like a praying position, elbows up, and then pressing down, you know, pushing your hands down as far as they can go, and you'll feel like a little bit of a pull on your wrists here. Don't go down too much so it's really painful, but you can breathe with it and, you know, try and push down a bit further each time. And yeah, this will really help stretch you out as you go. Obviously things, you know, like this, and then putting your hands out as well. And I haven't got as wide a camera angle here, but, you know, if you put your hand out and then try and move your hand up and down like that, that's also going to stretch you out a little bit more as well. Anything that you can do with your arms and hands to be able to stretch out and just get the blood pumping, and, you know, especially if you're playing after you've just woken up. I do most of my practice sessions when I've just woken up, so these particular warm-ups are really, really useful to me. So you could try that. That will all help with, you know, improving your speed picking. So let's take a look at exactly what Kenny does. So on here, harmonically, he's actually moving between two areas. So he's moving between minor and major, and then back to minor again at the end. Now this is strange because underneath, harmonically, it's minor. So the bass player is playing notes that indicate that it's an F minor. This isn't a unique technique. Actually, Clapton uses this. So Eric Clapton uses this on Sunshine of Your Love. If you listen to Sunshine of Your Love, you'll hear him move between D minor and D major in the solo. And Jack Bruce is still playing that, you know, the classic riff, which is D minor blues scale. I mean, I'm speculating here, but, you know, Jack Bruce and Ginger Baker, you know, both had experience with jazz, and this might have been an influence on Clapton. Who knows? Maybe, you know, if you know about this, you can stick it in the comments. But it's a useful technique to create some variation in your phrases, and also in the sound as well, because it does sound quite outside when you're pitting major against minor. So he starts off with minor. So that's all that harmonic minor that we've been looking at. And you can see that I'm using a little bit of legato. I'm always kind of pulling off to the last note of the phrase. And then he moves to a D, which is, you know, if it was minor, it would be D flat. So here he's moving to a D, and then he moves chromatically. So that's where your spider exercise might help there, because you're going chromatically down using all four fingers. And again, I'm pulling off to the last note. So he's going from C to A, which is major, and then again pull off again at the end, and he's going G, F, E, which again is major, and then, you know, chromatically from B down to B flat, but he starts with D, C, B, and then to B flat. And there, that again is just, that is a major scale, so that's F major. If we take out that chromatic note, that's all F major there, so he's firmly moved into F major territory there. And then if we take a look at the next half of this phrase, so here he's actually using a B flat arpeggio. Now this is kind of like, it's kind of Parker-like, this Charlie Parker-like, this particular phrase. And it's an arpeggio that occurs naturally within the F major scale. So B flat, D, F, A, and he's sliding into it from A flat. So it might be worth you learning those arpeggios that occur naturally within the major scale. So let's just take a quick look at those. Now what you can do with these is you can superimpose them over the top of your chord that's being played. So yeah, in this case it's weird because it's F minor underneath, but let's just hypothetically assume that we've got an F underneath. You can play that, you know, any of those arpeggios over the top of them, and they will bring out certain extensions. So in this particular instance with B flat, we've got a B flat, D, F, and A. So that's bringing out your 11th, 13th tonic, and then third there. So these arpeggios are actually good ways of bringing out the extensions without having to think too much. So, you know, if we go down to like a G minor, then G minor, you've got the 9th, again the 11th there, and then the 13th. So 9th, 11th, 13th, if you play a G minor over the top of an F, then you're going to get all of the extensions over the top of it. And then what he does, you know, if there was any doubt as to whether he was implying F, he actually does a 5-1 into F. He superimposes that. Even though the bass player is still playing F minor, he's actually superimposing a 5-1 in major. So you've got the flat 9 and then some enclosure. So going from the flat 9 down to the flat 7, up to the tonic. I just do it in this position because I can hear that. So again, we've got some more legato. And you might want to use economy picking there. Up, up, down, slide, up, down. And then he jumps all the way up here. So again, major there again with that A natural. And then he switches back to minor. Using a really, really cool, like, kind of Dorian device there. You might want to, you know, put that into your own lick bag. It's something that I heard Robin Ford use quite a lot, and also Wes Montgomery uses that quite a lot as well. That movement from the minor third, the A flat, to that D natural there, and then back to the F there. And then he ends with some more blues vocabulary. So at the end there, he's really punctuating the end of the section by using the D flat, 13 there. I'm using my first, second and fourth fingers to slide in. Just feels slightly more stable than 1, 2, 3. So, and then a C sharp 7 sharp 5, and then going back to an F minor there. You'll notice that they're all rootless voicings, and that's to avoid getting in the way of the bass player. So also something to think about there. So what are our takeaways with this? So our first takeaway can be using dyads more in our solos. So dyads or double stops, and we can use that with legato, so with slides in fourths, and then also with with hammer-ons and pull-offs, like that. I think our second takeaway should probably be working on our picking. So alternate picking, economy picking, synchronizing your left and right hand using a mirror and using a camera to be able to watch yourself back. Using a metronome, but not necessarily slowing right down. Try fast first and then slow down gradually to find your kind of edge of your ability, and then speed up from there. And then finally loosening up, more physiological stuff. So try some of those warm-ups that I learned from that card dealer. Number 3, I think, is using more diatonic arpeggios within your solo. If you're jamming on one chord like F major, then you could use those diatonic arpeggios over the top of this. But as we've seen, Kenny actually uses the diatonic ones from major over the top of minor to create a slightly more kind of spicy sound. So try that as well. And number 4 is that mixture between major and minor. As we can see, this is something that is not unique to jazz. Clapton used it in Sunshine of Your Love. When Jack Bruce was playing that blues scale riff, Clapton was switching between major and minor, so you can see it's not something that is unique to jazz, and you can try that. One little exercise actually with that is you might want to stick a loop on a loop pedal, or record it down on a voice memo or on GarageBand or Logic if you've got that. Just record down 4 bars on a loop of playing F minor, and then over the top of it you could try 2 bars playing in F major, 2 bars playing in F minor, and then see if you can get quicker, so then moving to 1 bar and then maybe just to 2 beats and 2 beats. So try that, that might work as well. So thanks for watching. If you got this far, remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos on this particular series and other things as well. And then if you really like it, then Patreon's the place to go to support me in making more. Again, thanks to all of my patrons who've supported me thus far. And next week is the last one in this series, and then we'll be looking at something new. So if you've got any suggestions about what you'd like to take a look at, I've got a few ideas already. But if you've got suggestions, then do fire them in the comments below, or if you're on Patreon, then put them in the comments underneath the video. Other than that, happy practicing, and I'll see you next week.